Hey y'all! And welcome to the Sorry Not Sorry Generation podcast, where we bring you a not-so-healthy dose of humor and reality as we get our hands dirty with some serious nostalgia and question everything.
Let's dive in.
Hey y'all!
Hey y'all!
It's Misty.
It's Ani.
And Aaron.
And we are starting with the very first episode of the Nameless City campaign. Technically, like the very first episode, because session 0 is episode 0, obviously.
This is the full, like, we're going into the game.
This
we
is
have
the start
nothing
of the
holding us back.
This is
that last was practice.
This is the start of the actual campaign and the actual plot. You guys can go back and listen to session 0. You can get the lore of the city, the lore of the world that we're going to be in, which for anybody who's knowledgeable about D&D is Matthew Mercer's Exandria, because I know way more about that than I do Torel from the D&D world. So sorry, but I don't know shit about Torel. I know a lot about Exandria, so we're playing in Exandria. I've watched the campaigns, and it's a lot of hours, so I didn't have to learn Exandria and then teach it to y'all, which I would have.
You've done much more research than we have, and we're very thankful for that.
Yeah, well,
it's the best DM.
Yeah, as the DM, I'm supposed to do all of the research, and I love doing fantasy research. Not real life research for school, but like fantasy research is my jam. So.
Yeah.
Right? Forget school. This is much more interesting.
But she's still getting A's in class, so don't worry about it.
Your girl's got a 4.0 GPA.
Hey!
Woo!
Which really just tells me my professors don't read my papers, but I have actively been citing in the wrong format my entire graduate school line. So.
Are you quiet quitting MLA formats?
No, we don't use MLA format, unfortunately. We use Chicago.
In history, yeah.
We use.
Oh, that's right. I forgot what it was called. I had to do that like twice, and it was
which one?
Chicago.
Oh, yeah, we did Chicago for publishing.
I use Chicago. We're supposed to use Turbian, which is an offshoot of Chicago. I've used it once, and that's when I wrote my master's degree. I haven't used.
I don't know what that is either.
Yeah, it's a stupid. Like, look, you want to how I know it?
What's the difference?
I don't know. My professors don't know either because
she
no one has called me on it. Like, I think at the beginning of my master's degree, and like I put effort into trying to learn it, but the auto generators for citations don't do Turbian, they do Chicago. So I've just used those because I don't make my citations. I use the citation generator because fuck if I understand that. Like they don't do Turbian, so they only do Chicago. So I use Chicago, and I think I've only had. Look, I went through my entire master's degree, and now I'm like 6 classes into my PhD. Nobody notices. No one at all. And the only time I actively did Turbian, and there's slight, like, the comma goes over here instead, or like the parentheses go here, or like whatever. Like that's the difference. The only time I actively made a point to do it was when I wrote my master's thesis, and that was it. And I'll do it again when I do my PhD thesis. But beyond that, have I ever fucking written in Turbian? No, I have not. And I have a 4.0 GPA. Nobody's reading my papers, okay? No one.
So nothing's going to stop her, essentially, from continuing to do whatever the fuck she wants to do.
No.
Exactly.
And I applaud her for that.
Nobody cares. Like, nobody... Like, I think they only read your papers, like, if your grade, like, is on the fence of passing or not. Like, with my master's degree, I had to have, like, I think a 75 or above or something like this. This I have to have like an 85 or above or something like that. So like I have to maintain a pretty good grade, but it's an even 100 on every single grade. It usually has varied the most. I've gotten a 90.
Damn, girl.
I've gotten a 97 like every once in a while, and I'm like, ooh. But
mix it up.
Yeah, like mix it up a little. My last class counted in points, and our total like final at the most you could have was 1,010 points. I don't know why 10, but it was 1,010 points. I had an even 1,000 points, and I'm just like, yeah, I'm not worried. So I don't, and by the time it was just good for me that they don't read the papers, because I'm really sure by the time I get to page like 15 out of 20, like I'm just not making sense anymore. I'm just like, it's just going, and I'm just like, woo. So it's just like they don't read it, and that's fine. So
there
lucky.
was one class in high school that I had like that, where we, instead of reading the books.
Mhm.
We watched the movie version or the closest equivalent to the movie version. And when I say that, I mean, what did we watch? Instead of I can't remember what book, but we watched Last of the Mohicans, and that wasn't the book that we read. And it was just like whatever. But anyway, so I was doing the work, and she would give you extra credit if you turned it in on time. So I always turned in my shit on time. And then in the spring semester, I got, because this was in high school, so it was 2 semesters. So in the spring semester, I got one of my trademark, combination platter thicknesses.
Okay.
And yes. I missed a week of school. I came back and I still had 120% in that class.
Fun.
Because just for turning my work in on time. And again, she didn't read anything. She didn't care. But it was just there were other people that were asking for more extra credits to pass. Wow. And I'm just so you just didn't turn it in, is what you're saying.
Yeah, it's really strange to me to and in some ways it irritates me because I write 20-page papers, nobody reads them, but at the same time, leave me alone, don't talk to me, don't critique me, don't speak to me, don't go in my space, don't perceive my existence, don't do any of that. I don't want you to do any of those things, especially this school. Don't fucking talk to me. I don't want to talk to you people.
I know they're if they actually read your paper, they might actually track you for being a witch.
That would be unfortunate. My current class is Western civilizations.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Oh, that's gonna be fun.
Yeah, it's awful. We're back to doing discussion posts where I have to record myself talking about them. I don't like it.
Oh, come on!
So, at least in the rubric for the discussions for this one, they're not grading me on my appearance. So.
Oh, hey.
I forgot about that from the other one.
That was weird.
I want you to show up in one video, just be I don't know, just go full goth or something, and they'll be yeah, so this is...
I'm genuinely surprised they haven't called me out on the sword that's in the background, but my figurine of Bakugo, I do hide when I record it, because on his arms are giant grenades. So I hide Bakugo. So I love Bakugo. But he's wearing giant grenades. So I do tuck him behind the screen so that nobody can see him. So, but,
oh my god, that's amazing.
I'm just I don't need them to see that. So it's better that I keep all of the books that I have that have gay storylines. They're on the other side of the camera, so you can't see that in the background. So I didn't do that on purpose. That's just where they are. So it's just there you go. You can't ever, because I just feel one day somebody's gonna get pissed and they're gonna just search the stuff in people's backgrounds, and I'm you won't find anything for me. Though you can see my D&D books, so but you can't tell what they are. So,
but that's kind of I would also do that. I'd be I am a blank slate. You will know nothing about me.
Yeah. Well, the way I record with for the class, I can't blur the background, or else I just do that. So it's not a feature it has.
Is it? So. Oh, that's gross.
Yeah. So, but it's fine. All right, you guys ready to start this thing? And we're gonna,
yes, ma'am.
We're gonna see how this goes. I done a lot of prep, so hopefully it goes well. And the best part about this map system for me is that I've made all of the maps in the order that you guys will encounter them, so it makes it easier for me to keep track of what y'all are gonna do. So
perfect.
Just so you guys know, I'm gonna start with Jaz'Zara just to make it easier to get things going.
Okay.
And then we'll move through it. And there's going to be a lot of narration at the very beginning. Mostly me probably talking to myself as other characters that Jaz'Zara encounters. So you can prepare yourself for me talking to myself, which is the fun of being a DM.
The Nameless City audiobook.
To be fair, that's mostly the first 15 minutes of session 0 is me narrating it.
It is. So, it's just your narration.
But I liked it a lot.
I was telling her, I'm just listening. I could listen to her for hours.
I know. Can we get her to read some of our books?
Right?
Maybe not the super spicy ones. I don't want to make her...
I don't need her to read. The most deadpan, uninteresting way possible.
And he put his...
a sound effect that and I would just hold it for 6 chapters and there you go. one of those $1 like spicy books you can buy on Amazon or whatever, and the whole time the audiobook version is just that sound, nothing else. Just
It would be like the new Rickrolling, where it's been really serious up until that point, and then
I'll make it like a goose honking noise, like My future plans are right there. That's my future job, is me going to be an audiobook reader. So
audiobook honker.
Audiobook honker. My official title, audiobook honker. I'll even like be a guest on other people's like audiobooks, and they'll just like with special honking reader.
With special honks by Misty Davis.
Exactly. And eventually, when I get a PhD, I'll just switch to the abbreviation, so it'll just say "Special Honks" by Dr. Matt, and it just like
exactly
choice.
Oh, it's gonna be amazing.
Oh, it will be.
I like that pen name for her. Well, I guess it wouldn't be a pen name, but you know what I mean. Oh my god, that's amazing.
It would be lovely, and I would have no issues with it whatsoever. So, all right.
And I would just send those out to people,
right?
I'll apply to be an audiobook person with like whatever companies do audiobooks, and that's what I'll send them. It's just me like reading like a chapter, and then just like.
And then we could read your rejection letters on the podcast.
Yeah, there you go. The pure confusion that these poor people who have to listen to these things would get, and be like they'd be listening to like the first part of the chapter and be like, okay, you know, like that's it's fine, and then they would get to that, and then
out of left field,
and just like, look, I just wanted to make sure there wasn't anybody like, you know, underage listening to this, so I'm doing like PG appropriate smut books. So, this is like, is that not a genre people are interested in? Like, you know,
Faith the Black becomes Faith the Honk.
And then you just completely traumatize some child who reads the book too young or listens to the book too young, and then every time they go to have sex, all they hear is honk.
50 Shades of Honk. So
every 2 seconds will be a honk.
Anyone who tuned in to hear D&D, I am so sorry that it turned into a honk session.
That's fair. Anna, you know how you and I were talking about doing like little quotes like per episode kind of a thing? Yep. There you go.
Honk.
50 Shades of Honk.
I'm writing that.
All right, ready?
Alrighty.
Yes.
I don't know. Are the listeners ready now?
Nobody was prepared.
No one's ever
Nobody
ready.
was prepared for the honking. Nobody's ever going to be prepared for the honking. And but if they're not prepared for our weirdness by now, then they're on the wrong podcast. So
yeah, true.
All right. Get my little meow. We'll have to do a featuring whatever your dog's name is.
I know, featuring Gibberish, the little pest that won't shut up.
Reading, we'll do it, so there's less background noise.
Needs a freaking muzzle.
Unfortunately, that probably wouldn't stop as much noise.
Even my mom is like, I want to put something to wrap around your mouth so you don't shush.
He just has such a piercing bark.
Ready?
Pest. Yes.
The Nameless City. Deep underground, underneath the surface of Exandria, a single city lies in the north. Here, you will find an interesting collection of people, families, and magic. It is within this city and its deep history of magic and war that we will find our party. Jaz'Zara Telena is a half-drow. She has worked with the city guard as a member of the Telena family. And while the Telena family are not exactly inclined to their own personal physical labors, they are very good at training those who are. As a half-drow, Jaz'Zara is not as well in the realm of status within her family as the rest. So she enjoys being delegated the more physical labor aspects of being a guard. As a ranger, she scouts and occasionally gets lost. Tries not to, doesn't always succeed, and gets herself into more trouble than is probably necessary, but she'll always blame that on her friend Valkaria instead, even when they're not together. Though, of course, it is always balanced out by Asha's level head, and hey, somebody has to be. Jaz'Zara is walking to her post at the gate because she has guard duty on the main gate of the city today. And beside her is her uncle. Her uncle has had a long time position as one of the upper echelons of the guard training. Like, his whole position is to train the lower common guard. And he's also one of the only Telena who has a kind of a sense of humor, which is rare among Drow, even more rare among the Telena. They're walking together along the cobbled streets over towards Jaz'Zara's post for the day. And Jaz'Zara is trying to convince her uncle to join her for cards later, mostly just because she knows he has money on him today. Surely you can join me for cards. Come on, it doesn't hurt. Right after I get off my shift, we'll gamble, and maybe you won't lose everything this time. And he kind of looks at her, kind of gives her a side eye. I am never playing cards with you again. I've learned my lesson. And she looks at him, she's like, that's what you've said every day that we go to play cards since I was 12. Has it worked yet? And he kind of shoves her away from him, and he laughs, and he says, no, it hasn't. I'll see you after your shift. So she laughs, and to get up into her shift, she could, as she approaches the tower, the guard tower that's connected to the wall, she could go through the door like a normal person. She's not going to. She scales the side of the building and absolutely scares the living hell out of the people who are standing guard facing outside of the city, as they're supposed to. They're not expecting Jaz'Zara to climb up over the wall behind them. And to be fair, she's done it enough times that they should probably be prepared, and they're not. But Jaz'Zara, after scaring the living hell out of her fellow guards, switches places with them as their shift ends and hers begins. And she begins the long and tedious process of walking and patrolling her part of the wall and standing guard and staring at the empty cavern that is in front of the Nameless City. Hours pass. It's boring. She walks. She encounters other guards. They discuss what they've seen, which is also nothing. And the most of her shift passes uneventfully. It's about 11-ish of the surface time. 11 a.m. for the record. Of surface time. She's spent a few hours doing this now. And it's during this time, I'll roll to see if she's begun to notice a low humming sound. It's not like a melodious humming sound, but almost like a buzzing noise. And it seems to be getting louder. It wasn't very noticeable at first, but it seems to slowly be getting louder. She's taken notice, and she looks around, and she walks down the wall to approach some of the other guards to see if they hear it. And after a moment of listening in the silence, they do. And Jaz'Zara asks, What is that? I've never heard that sound before, and it seems to come from everywhere, not just one place. And her fellow guards agree, and they're like, I don't know, what is that? And they all start to get kind of nervous, because the sound gets louder, but not in a way that it would be getting so much as that the volume is turned up, but so much as that it might be getting closer. And Jaz'Zara's starting to get paranoid. I don't know what's going on, but it can't be good. She runs over to the end of the wall where the tower is, and next to the tower begins one of the giant cavern walls. She can't see anything from where she is, but on top of the, standing on top of the edge of the tower, she can crawl up onto it, and then crawl up onto the wall, and climb the wall if she so chooses. On the very top of each guard tower is a very large brass bell. It is a warning bell. and she has to go around it in order to climb up the wall. And she's going to make a climb check to see if she can get a better vantage point by climbing up the wall. It takes her a moment to get any kind of height, but she manages to climb about 30 feet up and to try and get a better vantage point. And now that she's up higher, she can see over part of the ridge that starts to slope pretty far down, probably about 100 yards outside of the Nameless City. It really starts to steep down, because eventually you'll get into the middle dark and then into the lower dark eventually. And there's what looks like a large shimmer that goes across the area of where it starts to slope up from what she can see, and it spans 100 yards of space, and there's just a low shimmer, and she notices as the shimmer moves, so too does the sound. And it's about this time that she's on the wall staring at the shimmering that all of a sudden a pulse of magic hits the city. It does not come from outside of the city. It comes from within. And the deep magical presence that has always been a part of the city since long before any of our party were born pulses once, and in a wave passes over the city and is extinguished. The magical barrier that protects the city, encased somewhere unknown within the city, that keeps the Illithids out, has fallen. No one living within the city has ever experienced the fall of the machine or the barrier. Moreover, almost no one knows where the machine is, so it cannot be a simple accident. As the magical wave passes through the city and the device fails, the wave hits every citizen, and you feel it like a punch in the gut as the absence of magic becomes too prevalent. And Jaz'Zara, as she's staring out at this shimmer beyond the walls, as the pulse of magic hits, so too does the shimmer drop and the illusion with it. And from her vantage point, she can see what is now an army of thousands approaching the city. Illithids and their undead minions, thousands upon thousands of them, and she realizes the humming noise she's been hearing this entire time has been the marching of boots on the ground as the Nameless City is under attack. Fuck. Jaz'Zara, holding onto the wall 30 feet up, doesn't bother trying to climb down. It will take too long, and from her vantage point, she's one of the only people who can see the incoming army. She leaps off of the side of the the cavern wall, and she aims directly for the bell that hangs on to the top of one of the towers. She doesn't aim to hit it, she aims to grab the rope that's hanging underneath it. I have to roll for her not to just face first onto the ground. 19, she does. She catches the rope, and as her body weight falls with her, this loud gong noise rings with the bell over and over as she lights the warning sounds throughout the city. And as she does, every bell along the wall begins to ring. And she screams at the top of her lungs at the other guards. The Illithids are here. The barrier has fallen. And in this moment, everyone on that wall understands what will happen next. There is nothing protecting them from the mind-controlling powers of the Illithids anymore. Jaz'Zara understands that this is not something they can just win on their own. As she looks at this army of thousands of creatures that are marching upon their city. Their city is only 7,000 people strong. And her guard is certainly not over 1,000 people equipped. She leaps down over the side of the tower and begins to scale down, in which, once she hits the ground, she takes off running as fast as she can into one of the secret tunnels that will lead her up to Kell Tower. This is not something they can face alone. Over at Kell Tower, we have Asha. Asha's family, as worshippers of the Moonweaver, and as the sole area within the city of religious worship, in the center of the religious worship, lives in a tower that I unfortunately named the Kel Tower, not realizing it sounded like Bell Tower when I named it. To be fair, I didn't.
But we loved it anyway.
I didn't know that. Then once I did know that, I liked it. I'm like, okay. We will start with Asha. Asha, this is going to be happening at the same time, so this is pre-pulse. You haven't felt that yet. You're in the tower, and all of your family live within the tower. And you're in the tower. What would Asha be doing as she's just on a regular basis in her home?
I believe she'd be gathering up papers to study materials, I should say, that she would be taking to go down to the infirmary. Because she's a
healer.
A healer, an acolyte down there, and then she would be getting ready for her day there.
Okay. Because it's early morning at this point. And as you're gathering your materials for the day, you're getting everything together, you're thinking of all the things you're going to have to do for the day, all the responsibilities that you have. And as her
mind is going a million miles a minute.
Yep. There's so much to do in a day. You've got only so much time to get everything done. You're constantly being pulled in all these different directions, all these different responsibilities that you have going on. And just in the middle of this typical day, and like you can hear your family, they're moving about the tower. You can hear your Aunt Jacinda. She's leaning out one of the windows. She's yelling at something that you can't see. You think maybe she's just talking to the air. You're not really sure.
Like she usually does.
Yeah, she's usually just doing it, but you can hear her faintly out the window, like, oh, the ribbons, they flow so prettily. And then, like, she's leaning out the window mostly, and she's, like, waving ribbons, like, in the air. And she's having a great time.
I say a little prayer to the Moonweaver that today is not the day she falls out the window.
That's fair. It's a daily prayer at this point of hoping she doesn't fall out the window, because as much as Asha has a daily routine, so in some ways does Jacinda, and today it's ribbons that she's flinging out the window. You know your mother is somewhere in the tower as you can hear her yelling for Jacinda. She's like, get out of the window. We have things to do. We need those ribbons. Do not throw them on the ground. Jacinda! And you can hear them going at it. And she's like, but they look so pretty when they fall on the ground. And it is about this time, as you're just having a normal day, all of a sudden, a magical pulse hits you. It physically rocks you back. And because it feels like you were hit with a magical force. And in this one instance of absolute silence that hits after the pulse, you feel the complete drain of the magical barrier that protects the city disappear. And what in the Kel Tower, what is usually vibrant with life and sounds and movement, has gone completely silent. What do you do?
Well, when the magical pulse hit, as it felt like I'd been hit in the stomach, my papers flew everywhere. My book bag fell on the floor, and I stopped, wondering if I had imagined it. Praying I had imagined it. And then when I hear the silence of the tower, I know some deep shit is going on.
And that's when you hear footsteps running down the tower, and you see, because your door is open, and you see your mother rush by, and your mother rarely runs. Your mother doesn't particularly run. She doesn't rush. She doesn't have to. And because a lady is never late, she is on time and exactly when it means to arrive somewhere. So she, runs by your door, and that is a surprise in and of itself. But not too far outside of your door is one of the balconies that leads out in where you can see the courtyard. And your mother, if you step outside the door, you can see her leaning over the balcony, almost as much as you typically see Jacinda doing it on a reckless basis. And she's staring out at the now silent city. Do you approach your mother?
Slowly, cautiously.
And your mother, as you look at her hands are gripping the railings so tightly that her knuckles have just turned white. And she's staring out, and there's silence across the city. And then you can start to hear like cacophonies of noises of people freaking out, of screaming like in the far distance. The Kel Tower is situated up higher than most of the city, but it goes to show you how loud people are starting to scream, that you can start to hear them. And your mother turns to you and she looks at you and she's, it's fallen. It's the barrier's fallen. And she reaches forward and she grabs you and she's like, the barrier has fallen. This cannot be an accident. The barrier keeps this city safe. It is hidden. It is secret. It cannot be an accident. And it's about this time that you hear Jacinda run down the stairs. And she has a very different look on her face. It is not necessarily a serious look on her face, but she is focused on something that you cannot see. And her eyes glow with a green magic that you don't usually see with Jacinda. But as you can sense her magical presence, and you know the feeling of Jacinda's magic, you can tell that she is pulling magic to her. And she's looking at something, but it's not at anything you can see. And as she stares there for a moment, she says, it has happened. They are here. And the magic fades from her eyes and she looks at you. And she says, oh, I didn't realize today was the day to die. And then she wanders further down the hallway. And as she passes your mother grabs her and she's like, what do you mean? What do you mean that this is the day to die? And Jacinda just looks at her completely calm-faced. And she says, oh, they are here. And your mother said, who is here? Who are you talking about?
Who?
And Jacinda just calmly looks at both of you and she says, the Illithids have arrived. We will die today. And then walks away. And your mother stares at you. And for somebody who's very calm and collected almost all of her life, you can see what is starting to become fear building in her eyes. And she takes a moment, and it started like the fear and the pressure of everything is starting to build, and you can see it on your mother. But it is at that moment that all of a sudden you hear Jaz'Zara screaming your name, and she's just yelling, Asha! Asha! At the top of her lungs, and she is at she's burst through the entrance to the Kel Tower. And Jacinda, as you look down the stairs, because your stairs are spirally stairs, and as you look down the stairs, Jacinda is mostly walking down the stairs at a very calm rate, but Jaz'Zara is standing in the middle of the tower, and she's screaming your name. Asha! Are you here?
I run to the edge of the balcony, say yes, and then I run down the stairs, brushing past Jacinda and her slow, calm walk, because we gotta get some stuff done. It takes me a second because I don't want to fall and break my face on this day to die.
That's fair.
But I reach Jaz'Zara and go, what happened?
There's an army.
An army?
It's an Illithid army. There's thousands of them. They're coming for the city. And it's at this time your mother, who has grabbed like a bag you've never seen before, and she has that in one hand, and then she has a large shield in her other hand, and she's now composed herself, but in a way that looks like she's steeling herself for something, like she's steeling herself for a fight. And she walks down the stairs. She's very calm about it. She walks down the stairs and she looks at both Jaz'Zara and Asha. And she says, you must not be here. Go to the Nykor's home and find them. What happens next will depend on them. And she takes the shield that she has, and as you look at it, it is a purple and silver shield, and in a ring around the outside area of the shield is different phases of the moon. And in the middle of it is the symbol of the Moonweaver, which is an upside down moon that's strung like a bow, and it has two arrows on it as well. And it's very beautiful. It's very ornate. You think it belongs to your mother, but you've never actually had to see her use it. If your mother practices battle, you don't you've never seen her practice battle. You are aware that she is some kind of fighter, but it's not something she practices in public. So, but you are aware that this is probably something your mother owns. It's a very beautiful shield. It's ornate, but it looks like it's made out of like very sturdy, finely crafted metal. And she hands it to you.
It's heavy, so, and I'm unexpected.
Yeah.
So I take the weight into my hand, and I'm still gaping at her. Like, what do you mean, the Nicor? Why do I have to go? I'm very confused.
And as she hands you this beautiful but heavy shield, she looks at you and she says, if the Lithans get the key to the Ferez which is the well of magical power in the city, if they get the key to that, there will be no saving this city. There will be no protecting this city, and there will be no survivors. We will have to fight the oncoming army. And she looks at Jaz'Zara and she says, how many? And Jaz'Zara just shakes her head and she says, thousands. She's like, I've never seen anything like it. It's thousands. And she looks at both of you very calmly. And she says, go to the Nicor. Do not stop for anything. And she stands in your personal space, Asha, and she looks at you and she says, do not stop for anything. Do what they tell you to do. And if they tell you to run, don't come back. And she shoves the shield at you further.
And I take it, and rather than argue with my mother, I dip my head and look to Jaz'Zara, and we go.
Yeah, and just as you leave, Jacinda, who is wearing like a pack, hands you something. She hands you like a pack, and you can grab that from her as you go out the door. I grab that, even more confused than what my mother handed me. Like, who knows what's in that?
That makes visual sense. Yeah,
there could be anything
could be
in that.
Could be ribbons.
Could be mushrooms. Could be ribbons. Could be a bomb. Like, you don't fucking know. Like, it's Jacinda we're talking about.
Mm-hmm. And I say to Jaz'Zara, lead on.
And Jaz'Zara, who now has like a direction and like a mission, and just takes the lead. She leads you to the secret tunnel that you guys used to get to when you sneak from Kel Tower to where Valkaria lives, and you guys just thunder through these secret tunnels, and you just go as fast as you can. However, that shield is actually a special custom-made item I made for you, and we can add that to your character sheet.
Yay!
So I'm going to go add that to your character sheet, and I will I'll tell you a little bit about what it does when you'll have to sit and meditate with it for an hour to get like the full effects of it. But it is a custom made.
We don't currently have an hour.
No, you do not. So at the moment you have a shield, but you don't have the fun little bonus things that go with it. So let me add that to your inventory.
So for my printed page, where would I put that?
So it's going to go under your armor, and it's going to be a shield.
Okay.
Because it is a magical shield of fun.
Of fun.
Yeah, I didn't name it the magical shield of fun, mind you, but
Aww.
I know, it's disappointing.
That's a different campaign.
It is a different campaign. This is a shield called the Moon's Defense.
Okay.
And you can now add plus 2 to your AC.
So I'd be at 15, right?
Indeed.
Okay.
And you'll learn about the other things that it does later on. But at the moment, you have a very lovely, very ornate silver and purple shield with the moon on it. Oh, and well, now I'll save that fun little tidbit for after you because you don't know that yet.
Okay.
So
keep your secrets.
So while all of this is happening, we're going to go over to the Nicor. What did I say it was called? The Nicor, like, power or something like that. The way the stalagmites and stalactites.
The tower, yeah.
The tower, yeah. Which is like the actual word for stalactite and stalagmite combination, which I learned, and I thought that was the weirdest name for it, but that's the actual scientific name for that. So we're going to
go with it.
Rewind a little bit in time, but not much. Just what is Valkaria doing on a normal morning at home?
generally in the mornings, Valkaria is attending meetings with her dad, learning, being a part of the council, being a part of the ins and outs of the city, how things are run, learning everything she can until it's time to take over. So at this point, she's probably gonna be getting out of a meeting or whatever's going on with her dad. So, it's just ended. They're walking out of whatever room they're in.
So, Valkaria and her father you are exiting one of the meeting halls that you have at home. For some of the more smaller meetings, you do them within one of the many meeting areas that you guys have in your home. Sometimes you take them to council chambers, and sometimes you take them to the court. But today you've had a series of very boring meetings on agriculture, and you've just gotten out of this meeting. And as you have split off from your father at this point, he's gone to deal and talk to some other dignitaries, and you are getting your stuff together for what you're going to need for the next meeting, because your whole day is an exciting flurry of meetings. And as interesting as that is, it's not. And it's really boring, and it's really boring, but you do it anyway because you have to. And as you're gathering, your stuff, and you're just trying to wind down a little bit from the last really boring meeting before you have to go into the next one. And you're just walking through your house, and you just get hit with this magical pulse. And you, especially as such an arcane-based spellcaster, can sense the magic as it fluctuates for a moment before it fades and the pulse hits. And you feel it when it hits you, especially as an arcane spellcaster. It's like the magic that has always existed in the air around you just completely vanishes. And it's staggering for a moment, the complete loss of magic that you feel around you. And it is uncomfortably absent feeling that overcomes you with it gone.
As I feel the sputtering of the magic in the air around me, I just kind of stop mid walk towards wherever I'm going. I just stop, and I just I take it. I just trying to figure out what's going on, because I can feel it, and then it hits me, and I just feel empty. I'm usually cold to the touch, but I now feel cold on the inside. It's
a visceral loss.
It's a visceral loss. Something is severely wrong, and all the lights and stuff in the tower they all start twinkling and dying out, and I just stand frozen for a second going, what do I do?
And as you stand there, and it is a staggering moment, and you watch magic around you flicker, and the crystals flicker for a moment, the ones that light up the spaces and everything, and they flicker for a moment, and they do regain their stability after a moment, but it's a palpable feeling of not having the magical barrier in the air anymore. And your father, who is across the chamber but is within 100 feet of you, turns around very sharply, and he just comes right towards you, and he is just completely on a mission, and he pushes the other people who are in the space with you, advisors, council members, and things like that, pushes them out of the way so that he can get directly to you. And he's like, did you feel that?
I did. What was that? What happened?
It means the barrier has fallen.
What do you mean the barrier has fallen? You told me it couldn't fall.
I didn't think it could.
What do we do? What's gonna happen?
The barrier is powered by a device. The device uses energy that our ancestors pulled from the moon to power the device through magic and keep it stable. It was never meant to fail. They designed it specifically so that it would continuously feed on the energy that it produced. Was there
never a plan B? What happens when it fails?
It was never supposed to fail. It can't fail unless someone removes the crystal.
Who knows about the crystal or this device? Why was I never told about these things?
You are aware of the device's existence. You know nothing about, because that's the legend of the Nameless City, is the creation of the device in general. Nobody knows, well, nobody knows where it is. Like, you don't know where it is. There's rumors, like, it could be in the Dragonite Syndicate, it could be underneath it, it could be where like, very few people know the Ferez exists either, but they do know that people were fighting over, like, the magical energy of the area of the Nameless City, and that's how your ancestors and the Illithids went to war with one another. But nobody really knows, like, the magical energy, like, oh, okay, maybe they just meant the crystals. It's not, the legends aren't really specific about it, and they're just, like, they're not specific about what happened to the device. Some people think it's, like, people want to think it's myth, but everybody can feel the barrier at the same time, so, like, maybe there's just a natural barrier here, you know, like, conspiracy theorists theorize in all kinds of weird ways of thinking, you know, maybe it's in the water, maybe it's in the tower, like, maybe it's underground, like, you know, whatever. Maybe it's on the surface, you know, just weird shit like that, you know? And, so nobody's really certain, like, where it is. And, which is fine, but it tells you that somebody has found the device.
Right.
And your father looks at you, and you assume that if anyone's going to know where it is, it would be your father. He is the head of the Dragonite Syndicate. He is the technical operating head of this entire city. If someone is going to know where it is probably your father.
It's going to be him.
And it's also, there's a reasonable assumption that the other members of the Dragonite Syndicate would know where it is as well. And as you look at him, and he's staring, like, just off, like, at a wall, like he's thinking about something, but there's nothing specific that he's looking at, but it's almost as if he's trying to sense something. And he still has one hand, like, on your shoulder, and as he seems to be concentrating in magic, your mother comes rushing down from one of the other corridors from her own set of different types of meetings, and you can hear the cacophony of people that whoever she was in a meeting with are freaking out, and she comes running down the hall. She's like, what has happened? What is going on? What has happened? And she looks not at you, but at her husband, and who is still focusing on magic. And she completely breaks that. She's like, no. She was like pats him at him, and she's like, what is happening? What is happening? And she, like, pats at his chest, and just, like, to get his attention. And whatever, like, magic that he's doing in concentration, it breaks, and he focuses on her. And the machine has broken. And as she starts to question him, he says, I don't know. I don't know how. I don't know why. It's broken. The barrier has fallen. And you guys can hear now the bell sounds, the warning sounds.
Mm-hmm.
And as the warning sounds go off, your father's grip on you tightens, and you can tell that his grip on your mother tightens as well. And he just stares at you both, and all of you in this instance understand that this is not an accident, that this barrier is falling. It is not something that just happened at random. If there is a warning bell, that means the Illithids are here, and you know that.
Mm-hmm.
And if the barrier has also fallen, this is on purpose. And your father wears one of the symbols of the Dragonite Syndicate, which you, as his heir, understand that the pendant that he wears, which is a fully, like, 4-dimensional pendant in the shape of, it is actually kind of in the shape of, like, your D20 dice, a couple less sides on it, but he wears that, and you understand that this is something that only the head of the Dragonite Syndicate wears. And it has always seemed to you as, like, an honorary piece, but it is given from one head to the next head of the family.
Right.
And it is something he has never taken off. You have never, in any moment of your life, seen him not wear this symbol. And it isn't the symbol of, like, the Dragonite Syndicate, but it is the symbol of honor and of being the head of the Dragonite Syndicate. He takes it off, and he puts it on you. In a moment that absolutely shocks you, because he has never, ever removed this. And your mother actually takes a step back away from him in surprise, and her hands, like, come up to her face, and she's just completely shocked. And your father is probably the most serious you've ever seen him, as he puts this over you, and he looks at you, and he's still holding, like, the chains of it, and he looks at you and he says, do you know what this is?
No. I've seen you wear it. I've never seen you take it off.
It is because you should never take it off. This is the key to the Ferez. This is the only way to get into it. It looks like a pendant, but is an actual key. You use it to get into the Ferez well of magic. If the Illithids get this. They will be able to open the gate to the Ferez, and with it they will have enough magical power to enslave everyone in this city. And as he's holding, and he's just so close to your face, and he's so intense with it, and he's holding the chains to it, and the door bursts open, and Asha and Jaz'Zara come in, and they've run in. They're clearly very out of breath from running very quickly. But in this instance, even as you hear them like yelling for you, like you don't break eye contact with your father because he is directly in your face. And he looks at you and he says, "Take this and leave."
Leave where? Go where? What about you? Where am I going?
And he clocks Jacinda, or not Jacinda. Jacinda's not doing shit. Jacinda's on her way to die. Like, she don't care. He clocks
Jacinda's ready.
He clocks Jaz'Zara and Asha, and he orders them both to come here. And like Jaz'Zara kind of like straightens up because this is like the head of the city is telling her, like giving her an order. She straightens up and she very quickly walks up next to in front of you all, and I'm assuming Asha goes with her.
Right behind her.
And he looks at all three of you, and he says, "You will take this and you will leave the city. If the Illithids are here, if they get this device, if they get access to the Ferez, they will be able to enslave all of us, and there will be nothing we can do about it. Take this and leave the city. This is not a fight we can win. If there are truly an army, and without that barrier, I don't believe we can win, but we will lose everything if this stays." And as he's holding now the pendant itself, and he's showing it to you, and he looks at Jacinda, or god damn it, I keep saying Jacinda. Jaz'Zara. Jacinda was a mistake.
We're changing Jaz'Zara's name to Jacinda.
Holy
today.
Lord, no, we're not. He looks at Jaz'Zara, and he looks at Asha, and he says, "You will go with her, and you will leave." And they're both just, I'm assuming Asha is just as much in shock as Jaz'Zara is, as she's staring at him.
Asha's still processing her mother's stuff.
Yeah.
Completely stunned into silence. I've been told by two different parents that we're leaving, and I am shocked and horrified at this point.
And as you're standing there, and at this point, Valkaria, your mom, looks at him and is like, "Are you insane? They cannot leave. Where are they to go? To the middle dark? The lower dark? You would send our daughter to the lower dark? Or what? The surface? Where are they supposed to go? Where are they supposed to hide? It only gets worse beyond the wall. You cannot leave." And she looks at you, she's like, "You cannot leave. You will not leave." And your father is very calm as he looks at her and says, "She must leave, or we will all die." And your mother who is very prim, proper, your mother who believes in what ladies should and should not do, what heirs should and should not do, and who has never truly lost her cool in a way that there is shouting, that there is stern disappointment at best, but there is never shouting and there is never yelling. So it shocks you when she turns to your father and she yells at him, "My daughter will not leave this city."
I didn't know she cared so much.
And this display of emotion is very surprising to you. But she grabs a hold of your arm, and she looks at you, and she's like, "You will not leave. You cannot leave." And as you look at her, for the very first time, as you look at your mother, you do not see someone who is composed. You do not see someone who is strict with their rules, who is strict in what you should and should not do. Instead, you see a mother who is terrified for her daughter. And this, more than the barrier, more than the warning bells, more than your father handing you a pendant in which you have never seen him remove, this frightens you. Because never has your mother wavered in what she has done or said or been. And your father reaches forward and he looks at your mother and he says, not to her, but he's talking to you. He says, "Leave the city, take the key, find an army, and come back. If you cannot find help, and it will take an army, to defeat them, then don't come back.
What about you?
The city will either survive or it will fall, but it cannot do either with you here. And he takes a step back from you and he pulls your mother with him. And he looks at your mother and says, we will defend the city, but you must leave. And he starts walking towards the doors. And as he passes Jaz'Zara and Asha, he says, you will take my daughter out of this city. It is not a question. It is an order. And he looks at you one last time before he walks out the door. And he says, the fate of our city depends on you getting that key out. If you do not get that key beyond the walls and beyond this place, we will all be lost. If we fight, there is a chance for survival. But there is nothing if they get their hands on that key. I would not entrust this to you if I did not trust you.
I won't let you down. I'll bring back an army. I'll bring back whatever I can.
And he smiles at you. And in this grim moment, it is more comforting than anything else possibly could be. And he walks out the door. And Jaz'Zara, who is standing there very surprised at everything that has happened, and in a matter of minutes, like this, minutes have passed since she rang that bell and has like ran across the city, and she looks at you, and the three of you look at each other for just this moment and have an understanding of the weight that has been put upon you. You have to get the key out of the city, or if the Illithids get a hold of it, they will unleash a magical power upon the city that will take it over at best. Because death does not await the control of the Illithids. It is an eternity and mindless servitude, which is arguably much worse. Like,
just a bit.
Like the Illithid power is mind control, and they will just use you as a mindless army until your body breaks down and dies. So
that's great.
Isn't that great? Jaz'Zara looks at you both, and she says, "I guess we have our orders."
We're okay. Clearly I'm not doing well under pressure. Where to? Jazz, you know the best places in and out of this city.
And she looks at you both.
How do we get out of here?
Jaz'Zara looks at you both for a moment. And you can see her steel herself, like the hecticness of what's happening. She's calming down. She's tightened her hand on her bow, which has been in her hand pretty much the whole time. And she says, "Follow me. I know where to go." And
I place a reassuring hand on your shoulder and say, "We can do this.
We don't have a choice.
We really don't. Let's go.
If we want to see our city again, we really don't have a choice."
And the three of you, Jaz'Zara is going to lead you back towards the secret tunnel, and she will lead you through the cavern network. And as you get to the entrance of where you actually came in at, to get to Nykor Tower, just before you get there, you hear a resounding crash, and it is huge amounts of stone on stone. And as you look up and back towards the main gates of the city, and like there's not really gates of the city, it's just a solid wall, like all the way around.
Right.
You watch as gigantic boulders are catapulted into the wall, and the wall crumbles and is just flattened in an area that is probably 40 feet wide. And you watch as more boulders start being lobbed over the side, and just large crashing of stones against the wall over and over again, and are getting lobbed into the city. And just as you hit the entrance to it, a shout yells out at you, and it yells for Jaz'Zara. And as you turn, it's her uncle is standing there, and he doesn't say anything as he rushes up to you, but he's holding there's two quivers on his back, and he says, "You're leaving." And it's not a question. And she looks at him and she says, "Yes, they gave us the key to the Ferez, and we're taking it. We've been ordered to leave the city. We've been ordered to leave everywhere. I'm taking them to the surface. We need an army. And he says, good. Which surprises you. And he says, good. Take this and leave. And he shoves a quiver at her full of arrows. And he says, destroy anything that gets in your way. And he takes a moment to like pat her on the shoulder. And he rushes off towards the main gates of the city. And just before you duck into the tunnels, you can stand there and you can see your city. And you can see as people, some are rushing towards closer to the cavern walls, but others as guards and members of what you assume are the families are starting to rush towards the wall. And you watch as you can see the council room for the tower for the council in the center of the city, and not too far from it you see this pulsing bright red magic. And as you concentrate on it and you look at it, you can see Valkaria's father is standing in the middle of this huge pulse of magic. And as he stands there and the magic grows out of him, he rises up into the air. And he rises probably about 50 feet into the air, and this huge wave of magical energy pulses out of him, and it comes back in and is condensed into this ball, and it shoots forward out of him through the giant gaping hole in the gate in this huge red electric beam. And you hear a resounding crash, and the whole part of the city for 200 yards is lit up in this bright red flash. And you can see as he's doing this, there is another group of magic in what is some kind of group ritual that is taking place is also starting to pulse from a different area of the city, and golden magic begins to glow. And you can see that is the Telena family's secret spellcasting like guard, the spellcasting secret service are doing ritual magic. And the Crystal Catcher's family home is what should have been a series of longhouses has started to move, and like that really catches you off guard. And then the walls start unfolding themselves, and this gigantic two different catapults from two different long houses spring up and begin to, you can see that some of the gnomes are beginning to load them with what you're not sure with what, but they're beginning to load them. You can watch as the Silent Hammer, dwarves have all taken up arms and are running towards the gates of the city. And from the Kell Tower, you can see there's a glow of magic happening, and the what is normally blocked off, the only access point to the surface from the city, it has been opened, where you guys usually view the moon through. It has been opened, and you can only assume some kind of magical ritual is taking place. And as you look out at the city and you see your city and your people and your family fighting back, on the edge of where the gate and the wall has been broken, over the edge of it, suddenly 5 claw marks attach themselves to the top, and this black clawed hand comes up on top. The wall is probably 50 feet tall, and this gigantic hand sits on top of it. And then coming up to the side of it is another one, and it is black and scaled, and these claws dig into the wall and pull, and pieces of the wall crumble down, and lifting its head up 50. This wall is 50 feet, and this head comes up over the top of this wall is a giant ancient black dragon snout.
Oh.
And you hear it laugh. You are not near this wall, but you hear this dragon laugh reverberate through your city. And it laughs. Delicious. And as it pulls its whole body up, and it's crumbling part of the wall as it climbs up onto the wall, it roars a deafening sound. And even so far away on the other side of the city that you have to put your hands over your ears because it is so loud, it shakes the stalactites on the ceiling. And it unleashes a breath of green acid over buildings, the wall, and it's purposefully crumbling more of the wall, and it is laughing as the wall is melted in acid and its strength. And staring in absolute horror as you watch this, Jaz'Zara reaches up to both of you and pulls you through the exit and into the tunnels that will lead out of the city. Hey y'all, I know this is a little strange and everything, but we are cutting this part of the session 1 here. Part 2 of session 1 is uploaded in a different episode due to the way our software works. We had to upload them into 2 separate episodes because it was too big, and if we uploaded them together as one episode, the sound quality for part 2 was going to be a lot worse. And we didn't, and it like to the point that it was kind of jarring, so we wanted to separate them out so you managed to like maintain the good sound quality that we have in the first part of session 1 and not it all just deteriorate in session 2. So for the rest of session 1, you can go to the next episode. Everything is there. We didn't have to do any changes or anything like that. They're just 2 episodes. All right. Thank you guys.
Tune in next week for more fuckery because we have some serious questions and concerns.